can see that okay. So we're here to do grant management seminar. So understand the purpose of the whole meeting is to understand the Rotary grants process, learn stewardship expectations, prepare clubs to implement the memorandum of understanding, and of course qualify clubs to receive grant funding. I hope that you all received and printed out or did in some way or shape or form have the slides that I sent out so you can make notes as we go through the session here. So qualification requirements. Clubs must qualify to receive Rotary Foundation Global or District grants. The process ensures that clubs are aware of Rotary requirements before receiving grant funds and provides clubs with the tools needed to complete these requirements. By attending this training, participants complete the first step toward qualification. One club member must attend this seminar annually and then share the information with fellow club members. The second step is to have the club president and president-elect sign and submit the club MOU. Since we started using DAC-DB grant module, this signing is accomplished by ticking the appropriate boxes in the application. It is no longer necessary to print, sign, upload the MOU or the MOU compliance questionnaire. The questionnaire you can just use as an in-house review tool to make sure that your club is thinking about all of the little things that need to be thought about in order to live up to the requirements of the MOU. So the qualification is valid for 1 year only. The club is responsible for the funds. Clubs need to disclose any conflicts of interest. Now, the conflicts of interest, might be a club member or another Rotarian in the district providing goods or services. We have to be very cautious of those types of things and be sure that we get more than one bid for any of those types of things that might come up. The clubs will need to cooperate with any audits, use grant funds properly, and of course implement the policies stated in the MOU. So let's see, qualification. Follow terms of the club MOU. It'd be nice to appoint a club member or committee to manage qualification. It would, since I deal with all the clubs and I get different people, different time, different years from the clubs, it would be nice to have someone step up in the club and be that club qualification person or DAC-DB person for the grants. Because when I was dealing with one of the helpers at DAC-DB Tech Services, they were kind of alluding to the fact that, well, people will get used to using the system. Well, that's not quite true, because my experience shows that probably 85% of the people who get on the DAC-DB grants module, it's the first time they've ever been there. So it would really be beneficial for someone in every club to kind of take on the role of the qualifications manager and DAC-DB person for grants. Besides the club, the club secretary is pretty well versed in DAC-DB, but the grants module is a different animal altogether. So, and then let's see, fully implement stewardship practices. And we'll talk more about bank account and all that as we go through here. So let's design the project. We'd like to have a 3-person grant committee. I'm sure you can understand why we might want a 3-person committee. You never know when somebody's going to either drop out of Rotary or, just not be able to participate anymore. And if that's the case and they've been running a one-person show, people are lost. They don't know what to do next. So we need a 3-person committee. You want to assign the roles for the different people on the committee. You know, it gets more Rotarians involved too, which is very helpful. Make your implementation plan. Establish the budget. I've dealing with some of the grants, I can tell that people haven't really given a lot of thought to the budget in some instances. Have a contingency plan. And of course, have a document retention plan. And this is one of the benefits of DAC-DB grants module. We have, when you upload, you can upload the stuff that we ask for, the receipts, the canceled checks, that type of thing, some pictures, all that, but you can upload anything else you want on the DAC-DB website. Is a great place to put that stuff as an archive, but remember that it's only good, they'll probably only keep it for 5 years. And DAC-DB will probably eliminate the 6th year of history. So you need a retention plan to keep all your documents. Hopefully you have a club historian or something that is going to take this documentation and keep it for use when you have your 100th anniversary and all that kind of thing. So, creating the budget. The budget should be realistic and comprehensive to ensure adequate funding. When choosing a supplier, Rotarians should use competitive bidding to make sure they're getting the best products and services at the best prices. Clubs should keep records on any submitted bids. Clubs must disclose any potential or real conflicts of interest. So as you know, there are 2 different kinds of grants. We're going to specialize today mainly on district grants, just to make the training session a little shorter. But you have 2 different grants. District grants were good for up to $5,000, and global grants which start at $30,000. So as you know, there's a big difference there between the project sizes. And district grants can be used in the local community, or you can use them for international projects. Now, global grants are international projects only, of course, and have to have a Rotary Club on the other end. District grants worked internationally do not require Rotarians on the other end. So you can set up a completely different process. We ask for district grants to be completed during the year that they're awarded. Now, we know that this doesn't always work. This year, I think we're going to find a lot of carryover because of the problem that we're in. But we ask for all the clubs to submit an interim report on DAC-DB. It's very simple to do. 4 simple little questions, and it helps the committee understand where you are on the project, the likelihood of it being completed and when, that type of thing. So it just keeps us informed of what you're doing. So, and of course, those interim reports are due May 15th. And unfortunately, we still have about 15 grants open for this Rotary year, and nobody has given me an interim report. So I hope that we'll be having some of those soon, or you'll be getting some emails.
Steve, this is Hugh. Excuse me for the interruption, but you kept saying on the other end, on the other end.
Yep,
would you explain to everyone what you mean by that?
Okay, those folks who are receiving the grant. So, it would be, if you're going to work the grant, let's see, we did some filters in Guatemala, I think. So the other end would be the people receiving the grant, the other country. Okay. So how are we doing this? The funding, it's a one-to-one match. Clubs have to provide 50% of the funding. Minimum grant size is $250. Maximum is $5,000. Although we're going to talk about that in a little while, due to this year's abundance of funds. And clubs may apply for more than one grant each year. We have some clubs that apply for 2 or 3 grants a year. And if the funds are available, the clubs will receive those grants. The important part of this is that in the grant application, there is a field called priority. And so you need to prioritize your grants to make sure that they're either the first, second, or third priority. Which one is most important to your club so that we can get you the grants that you want without a lot of confusion. So applications are due, and here's a boo-boo. Originally they were due May 15th, but we changed that to June 15th. I might explain the reason for this tight time frame. I tried to explain it in that email that came out that invited you to this meeting. The district has the responsibility of submitting this thing called a spending plan. It's only submitted once each year. And in that spending plan, we list all the grant applications from all the clubs. And it all goes to the foundation staff at one time. They look at it, they approve it, or they send me back a message saying, well, what about this or what about that? And we, of course, answer those questions. And then hopefully they will approve it. But being a one-time shot, we need to have at least 80% of our funds that we plan on spending for the year. We have to have 80% of those funds already earmarked by club grant applications so that we can hold on to the 20%. The foundation allows us to hold 20% for future things that come up during the year. So we need about $96,000 in grants applications so that we can satisfy that requirement and move on and get the grants approved for the year and get the clubs working on the grants. Clubs are not allowed to work on the grants until they are approved. So we try to keep to this tight time frame of getting the grants in, getting them submitted to Rotary, getting the approval, and getting them back to the clubs. So, okay, the DAC-DB module, we'll go over this. We're lucky here in this situation that we have the ability to pull up the screen, and we will go over all of this for those that are going to, I think almost everybody's going to stay except for 3. So you go to grants view and then click create a grant and so forth. This is a pretty easy methodology, but it can get confusing. There are extra resources, additional resources that you can use to understand the grants. The grant memorandum of understanding is very important. The terms and conditions. Both of these documents should be read and understood by the club president and club president-elect. The terms and conditions document is a wonderful document. If you have insomnia, you can certainly benefit from it, but you should understand it. The grant compliance questionnaire was something that we created here in the district. It's just something that you can use to make sure that your club is thinking about all the things necessary to conform to the memorandum of understanding. And these forms are available on the left-hand side of the grants module under the Grant Secure Files tab. So, forms. Download and review the forms, which is basically the MOU. We need to acknowledge the acceptance of the policies of the MOU and of the terms and conditions. Okay, final report. Grant final reports. I've always suggested that people who are going to be doing the final report read the final report before they get started with the grant. You have to know what metrics you need to track. So look at the back of the DAC-DB. It's called Final Report. There's a tab called Final Report. Just look at that and you'll see miraculously that much of the data that is required in the final report appears magically in the report. It is taken from your application. But there are four other fields that need some minor input. So please look at that. Now, final reports are due within 2 months of completion of that project. Now, I don't know how many times many times, I have contacted the club saying, hey, where's your final report? They say, oh, I meant to turn it in. We finished that 6 months ago. Well, if you don't turn in the final report, you don't get paid. I have one club that I contacted yesterday and said, hey, where's your final report from last year? He says, I just thought it was too late to turn it in. I thought, well, no, the money's sitting here. If you turn in the final report, you'll get paid. So make it a policy. When you complete a project, that's something else that grant manager in your club can handle, can help you keep up with, is getting the grants closed out. You want to scan and submit all the receipts and cancel checks and that kind of stuff to show that in case of an audit in the future, this is where you're putting all this stuff for an archive. It's just a good place to put it. And then we ask everybody to enter your project in Rotary Showcase. I hope you've been to Rotary Showcase. It's an excellent place to see what's going on in the Rotary world. And it was started by Rotary to try to determine what Rotarians are actually accomplishing in the world. There's 4 fields at the bottom of that actually track the number of hours and dollars and so forth that Rotarians spend. We can certainly track all of the funds that are spent on global grant projects and more or less on district grant projects. But what about all those other projects in your clubs that you do? We ask everybody to enter all of your club projects in Rotary Showcase. There has been some estimation that Rotarians are probably contributing maybe up to $1 billion a year around the world in benefits to the public. So we'd like to prove that someday, and we can do that by entering our information in the Rotary Showcase. So a little oversight and reporting. Any questions? Okay, so stewardship is responsible for oversight and grant funds. So we want to report any irregularities. We want to have Rotarian supervision. This is really important on global grants. We want a good, clean financial records. One of the ways to make sure that we have good financial records is to make sure that every club has a bank account for grants, a checking account only for grants. We hope that every club does this. Oversight of funds, just what it says there. And then the timely submission of reports. You know, that oversight is transparency and accountability of grant funds, affects donors' confidence, and so forth in the Rotary Foundation. We have to make sure that we don't have any irregularities in our funding. Stewardship is important. So here's the bank account funds. Now, bank accounts, as we say, for district grants, just one bank account for district funds. You can use it year after year after year, but have a bank account for district funds. If you get a global grant in the future, you must have a bank account exclusively for that global grant. This makes it possible then to, once your club receives the funds, it's important to, let's see, you can use your checks or your bank cards, and of course you'll have a detailed ledger on where the monies are going. Okay, document retention. Part of it is going to be on your DAC-DB account for district grants. Any global grants, you got to come up with your own documentation, storage, archiving, and that type of thing. Must be retained for 5 years for audit purposes, and or you should have a historian or something that keeps track of all your activities, and you want plenty of copies, backups, and all these things should be available to any club member. It's just part of the transparency of the funds. We want to make sure that anybody who has a question, anybody in your club wants to know where these monies are going, they can see it without any problem. All right, reporting requirements. Reporting is a requirement. It's a key component of proper stewardship. If a club has already completed an evaluation of the project and maintained records in accordance with the club memorandum of understanding, completing Rotary's reporting requirements is simple. Reporting verifies that the grants were managed properly and implemented in accordance with the policies. It also provides an opportunity for communications between partners, building trust and a continued partnership, particularly for those global grants, but also, we do establish partnerships here on the ongoing partnerships locally. Reporting allows project partners and foundations to celebrate successes and learn from the challenges. It encourages future giving because donors are confident that their funds have been used as intended. It provides valuable evaluation data for the foundation. It allows Rotary to demonstrate to current and future donors its effectiveness and the impacts of grants. It allows project outcomes in each area of focus to be aggregated and marketed to Rotary audiences. So it's very important that we get those final reports in. And lo and behold, by cutting down and cutting out the global grant process, we're done.